So we're going to run through very briefly agenda consulting for those of you who haven't worked with us before. I'll talk about volunteers count and what the study is, and then I'm going to hand over to Sarah, who will take you through the live system, which is very helpful because it shows you the process from start to finish along with the reports that you can run. And then we'll go through the timetable, the prices, and answer any questions that you might have. So for those of you who don't know Agenda, we are a research consultancy and we work with not-for-profit organisations on their people surveys. So we work on employee and volunteer surveys, and we also offer pulse, onboarding and exit surveys. We do provide some people management consulting, and we do some work on reward as well, and other benchmarking work and research work. We carry out the HR and volunteer management benchmarking studies. We've just closed on the people count benchmarking study, which is looks at the HR and workforce management functions, and volunteers count is the equivalent, which is what we're talking about now. So Volunteers Count is a volunteer management benchmark study for not-for-profit organisations, and it looks at key metrics of volunteer management. So just to be really clear, it is not a survey of volunteers. We're not going out to volunteers to ask their opinions or questions. We would do that through a volunteer survey. This is looking at the practicalities of managing volunteers. It was developed by a steering group from the sector. One of our clients worked at an organisation and had done the people count study many times. And when he moved to a new organisation, he was looking after the volunteers for the first time and realised that there wasn't the data available to him that he'd had for the workforce and for the HR function. So he approached us and asked whether or not we could introduce a study very similar to people count. And following consultation with a number of organisations, we started Volunteers Count. So this is the third time that it's run. It runs every 2 years, and we are just thinking about that at the moment, about whether or not it might become something that becomes an annual study. It depends really on what organisations wish to do. Volunteers Count enables organisations to review their own processes, but also understand how they compare with their peers and also with the sector as a whole. And that will become much clearer as we show you the live system about how that works in reality. It also gives the opportunity to learn from others to improve performance, and that comes about through the good practice examples that we'll cover in a minute. I mentioned the steering group. The steering group comprised these organisations this year. We are really keen for other organisations to join, so there's a good representation across the sector, both in terms of size and type of work that organisations do. If you are interested in joining the steering group, it's not a huge commitment. We meet probably twice a year, and we tend to do that by a conference call now because we recognise everyone's so busy. And the role really of the steering group is to review how the last study went and just to look at the questions and see whether or not there are changes that could be made, whether there are new areas that are of particular interest that we should perhaps introduce into the study, and generally make some tweaks and make sure that it's still current and reflects the needs and demands of the sector. The study is also supported by our partners, so we have the Association of Volunteer Managers, Mental Health Providers Forum, Charities HR Network and the VODG. Just for those of you who are from hospices, we have worked with Hospice UK on the People Count study this year for the first time, and I spoke with them about Volunteers Count. It was slightly late for them to come in as a partner, but we did say that we would like to offer all hospices the special membership rates as well, so you are entitled to pay the member rates, even though we don't have Hospice UK in or AVSM in as a partner this time. We'll look to do that maybe next time. So Volunteers Count does aim to build a picture of the volunteer management function in the organisations. and it does give you a management tool with which you can demonstrate accountability because it's backed up by evidence, which I think when I've been to various meetings at the AVM and other meetings with volunteer managers, it seems to be quite a constant issue that there is a lack of evidence and a lack of data to support the volunteer management function. And Volunteers Count is a study that can go some way towards that. So if you're, for example, looking at IIV as a accreditation you'd like to work towards, then some of the data from Volunteers Count would probably be really helpful to count towards that. It does enable you to compare with your chosen peers, and this year for the first time we have introduced tiered pricing, which reflects the different size of organisations and the ability to fund the study at an individual organisation level. Also new this year is that we are gathering attributed good practice examples. Throughout the study you'll be asked to answer questions, and 99% of it is kept anonymous for obvious reasons, data protection and so on. The one area where we do ask you to put your name against the response is on the good practice example, so you can choose to put some good practice examples in there or not. And the other thing that's new is that we have set up a contact hub, which means that you can contact other organisations within the study, and we'll show you that within the live system. So the study covers the following main areas: the profile of volunteers, and that would address questions such as gender, age, number of volunteers, and so on. We also look at or ask questions about recruitment, selection and retention, L&D, support and supervision, and so on. And also, if organisations offer an expenses policy, what that policy is. And then the final one here that we offer is the Strategic Volunteering Development Function, which is quite a grand title, but that was what the steering group felt needed to be in there as a header. And that will look at things like the ratio of volunteers to a volunteer manager and those sorts of things as well. And very importantly is we gather data on the return on investment to demonstrate how effective the volunteers are within an organisation. I hope this is helpful. So in 2013, 40 organisations took part, and we will add the responses from this year's data to the 2013 study. So you will be able to select peers from this year and also peers from 2013. I know it's slightly late in terms of, or the delay, if you like, is a couple of years, but actually for some organisations you might just want to compare with them anyway, because they work in a similar field to you. But it will be clearly shown if an organisation's data is from 2013, and we only include the latest data. So if somebody's taken part in 2013 and again this year, only the 2015 data will be included. And as I say, it's clearly marked when you come to select your peers. You can select from a range of subsectors, a minimum of 5 peers, a maximum of 20, and that really again is just to preserve the anonymity of the data. We've broken the sectors down into subsectors as shown here on the screen. We might add some more at some point, but the reason that we do break it down into sectors is to enable further analysis and also to enable organisations to select peers more easily. So if you take part in Volunteers Count, when you sign up and start to enter the data, we ask you to allocate your organisation to up to 3 different subsectors, and that, just as I say, makes it a little bit easier for peer selection. So far this year, these organisations have signed up and are taking part. Sorry, I'm wrong. These are the organisations that took part in last time we ran the study. And so far this year, we've got almost the same number in. I think we're at about 37 or 38 organisations who've signed up. Some of those are people who've done it before, but there are also lots of new organisations taking part for the first time, so that's great. So I'm going to hand over to Sarah. Sarah's going to take you or show you the live system and take you through the process. As I say, if you want to ask any questions, then please do, or just put them through via the chat function. And I'm just handing over to Sarah now. Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks a lot, Claire. When you join Volunteers Count as a participant, you are given a username and password to access the client area, which looks like this. And that can be accessed from our website, agendaconsulting.co.uk. And this is your dashboard in order to access any benchmarking study that you're signed up to. Each organisation has a lead user who's the main point of contact for the study, and this user can then create additional user accounts for other members of their team in order to share the workload. The system's really user-friendly, but if you do get stuck, you've got access here to guidance notes and a user guide, as well as obviously being able to call the agenda office during working hours if you have any questions. So to begin the study, it's a case of working from left to right across this blue bar. I'll demonstrate now each of the blocks. So I'm going to show you that on the 2013 study, just for the example. So first of all, enter edit data. Clicking this presents you with a list of topics that are covered in the study, all of which have a number of questions within them. Ones that you haven't yet completed have a red block next to them. Those partially completed have an amber block, and those that you've completed have a green block. I'll click on one of these now just to show you. I'll go to Profile of Volunteers. So you can see here on the right-hand side, there's different names next to them, and that shows you the person who put the information in, which is really helpful when you're checking the data before you sign it off. So if I click on this one has the total number of volunteers at year end. For each question there are guidance notes, and that just ensures that everybody who takes part in the study is putting the same information in. I'll close that and go back to the dashboard. The next step is to view the questions and data. So when you have filled out as much as you can of the questionnaire, it's worth mentioning, I think, at this point that many organisations don't feel able to fill out 100% of the questionnaire, particularly if the first year that they take part in the study, and that's absolutely fine. We encourage you to fill out as much as you can in order to get the best data that's possible, but we recognise that this can be difficult for organisations, particularly in the first year, so to aim for about 60% is absolutely fine. So here we're on View Questions Data, and here you can have a look at the questions that you've responded to, as well as having those which you've yet to respond to highlighted with these arrows here on the left-hand side of the grid. You've got your responses to each of the questions, and this is very easily printed. I know that a lot of people who take part in the study find that really helpful, and they print that out and put it on a colleague's desk, just as another way of using the system without having to log in. I close that and go back to my dashboard. Next step here is to sign off data. This needs to be done by the 17th of July, so there's about a month to go. The Agenda Research team then runs some checks on the data. And from July, you're able to select your peers. And last time we had over 40 organisations taking part. We're expecting the same number this year, if not more. And as Claire mentioned, you can select organisations from previous years as well, should you want to, for your peer group. The whole sample data will just be taken from this year, but if you'd like to select peers who've taken part in previous years that are unable to do so this year, you may do that. It's really important to think carefully about your peer selection. Some organisations choose their peers from similar sectors to them, whereas others choose peers of a similar size, whether that's income or headcount of volunteers. All of that information is displayed on the screen here to help inform your peer selection. So once you've chosen your peers, it's time to run your reports. There are 2 report volumes. Volume 1 looks at your organisation's scorecard, which is the results of the study for your organisation alongside your peers and also alongside the whole sample. And the Volume 2 reports are sector-wide and give you a big picture view on volunteering function within the third sector as a whole. So I'll just show you one of those now. These reports are available as part of the participation package. So if you'd like to sign up to Volunteers Count, you would automatically receive those for this year. But if you're unable to take part, they're available to buy for £150 each, and there are 5 of them. So I'll show you what these reports look like. You've got the sector-wide data, as I mentioned, alongside some commentary and analysis from the research team here at Agenda. I'm going to close that down now and show you the Volume 1 reports, because I think that that is the one that's the most important to an organisation taking part. So I've clicked here on Volume 1 and drill down. You can print the Volume 1 reports, and that's absolutely fine, perfectly valid way to use the data. But I really recommend having a look online as well, because you can really drill down into the information and find out more about each measure. So once again, like when you put the information in, you can see here all of the topics that are covered within the Volume 1 report. I'm going to click on the profile of volunteers, I think, here as an example, but an excellent starting point is the key indicators, which are things that we've selected as particularly important for most organisations. So as you can see, the table shows you your score for this year, and if you've taken part before, it also shows you your score for the last study that you took part in. It then shows you your peers' median score and the median score for the whole sample. You can see that the data is displayed in different colours, and this is to demonstrate difference. So black is comparable, orange is different, and pink is significantly different. And this isn't us saying that anything's particularly good or bad, it's just to show anywhere of difference. If we select one of the measures here, you can drill down further into the data and find out how the measure is calculated. So I'm going to choose this one here, the ratio of volunteers to employees headcount. So you can see how the measure is calculated. You've got the number of employees divided by the the number of volunteers divided by the number of employees. And you've also got your score here alongside your peer score and alongside the whole sample as well. If I click on the guidance here for interpreting the table, it shows you, I'll just scroll down a bit. Here you go. Here you can see how the significantly different and comparable scores are calculated. And that's the same for all of the measures. I'll just close that now. So as I said, you've got your score here, your peers' score and the whole sample, and that's displayed numerically. You can also see that displayed as a bar graph here. You've got here's me right down here at the bottom, significantly different from my peers, as you can see. Scroll down again, and here's me within the whole sample, and this has been split up into deciles rather than showing each organisation's score on the table. If I scroll down even further, I can see analysis here by size and sector, which I think gives a further dimension to the data. For example, you can then have a look at your score compared to other organisations of different sizes and working within different sectors, and see where the differences lie there. And this feature is available for every single measure. Now, while most questions require a numerical response for each topic, there's also an opportunity to share good practice. And this feature is only available to participating organisations and isn't included in the sector-wide reports as attributed good practice, as Claire mentioned. So I'm going to show you that actually on people count, because it's a new feature for this year for volunteers count. So within each of the reports, within each of the sections of the reports, you've got, if I go here to retention as an example, scroll right down, you've got your good practice points in retention, and that's your opportunity to share good practice with your peers and other participating organisations. Here I can see the peer responses, the whole sample responses, and some commentary from the agenda research team here as well. This is also available from what we call the contact zone, which is a new feature, the good practice zone. If I click on that, you've got all of these good practice points collected in one place, and that looks the same as I just showed you, but it's available from one place. You've also then got the contact area, which is a new feature for this year, which for people count was really positively received last year. And here you can see you've got each organisation with a nominated name and contact information. And this is excellent if you see something that somebody else is doing that you think is really interesting and you'd like to do that within your organisation and want some advice or some guidance, then people are really willing to share information. I'm going to hand back now to Claire, who's just going to conclude the webinar. But if you do have any questions about the live system, please get in touch. Okay, I'm just going to hand back.
Thanks very much, Sarah. I'm just going to bring up the PowerPoint again. Sorry. Let's take this down to where we were. Okay. So just looking at the timetable, we're just going to look at the timetable first of all, and as you can see, we're running these information webinars weekly. The early prices expire tomorrow. If this is the first chance that you've had to see volunteers count, you need to just have a quick think about it. If you contact us tomorrow and you can make a decision maybe really early next week, then we can look at extending the early bird prices. But we do have to have a cut-off point. The data needs to be submitted by the 17th of July. And the reason for that is that we need to close the study at a certain point so that we are able to sense check the data. Our researchers will go through all the responses and come back to anyone where they aren't too sure of a particular response, or it looks radically different from everybody else's, just to check that it's correct. And also it means we can start to do the analysis and so on. August gives you the opportunity to select your peer organisations, and the reports will be published by the 21st of September. There's a results conference, I think Sarah mentioned, on the 8th of October, and it's split into two parts. So the morning is open to participants and non-participants, and we talk about the outcomes of the study as a whole, and we also ask a couple of organisations to come and talk about their experience of doing the study and how they've applied the results within their own organisation. And then in the afternoon, there's a product training session. I'm not too sure why we call it a product training session, but anyway, it's a session that gives you the opportunity to bring your own reports, review them and ask any questions that might have cropped up looking at your own results in relation to everyone else's. Following that session, you're also offered, which you can choose to take up or not, an hour's phone call with one of us to go through again your own reports and to help with a bit more interpretation of the data if that is of use to you. I'm jumping around a little bit. Prices, mentioned prices earlier. These are the early bird rates that you can see here. So it's linked to the income size of an organisation. And as I mentioned, the hospices is shown here are also entitled to those early bird member rates. Otherwise, organisations will be paying the standard rate of £700. So I'm just going to leave this on the screen, which is a comment from the RSPB who began Volunteers Count with us right at the beginning. And if you'd like to ask any questions, then I'll open up the floor if you like. Otherwise, you can ask questions via the chat function, whichever you feel happiest with. So I'm going to hand over to you now if anyone has a question.